Today, we're going to take a look at section 3.3, which is graphing using intercepts. First thing we need to know is we need to know what intercepts are. And intercepts are where the graph crosses the axes. To find the x-intercept, what you're going to do is you're going to plug in 0 for y, and then you're going to solve it. To find the y-intercept, you're going to do the exact opposite. You're going to plug in 0 for x and solve. So let's take a look at an example. So they might give us something like 2x plus 7y equals 28. So to do this, I'm going to go ahead and I want to find, first we're going to find our x-intercept. You need to make sure you're showing your work for these and not just giving me answers. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to say that I have 2x. I'm going to plug in 0 for y. What's going to happen here is that the y term is just going to end up canceling out. So we're going to get 2x equals 28. We're going to divide both sides by 2. And we're going to get x equals 14. We could also go ahead now and we could find the y-intercept. And so the y-intercept, I'm going to plug in 0 for x. So this time my x term is what's going to cancel out. So I'm going to be left with 7y equals 28. I'm going to divide both sides by 7. I'm going to get y is equal to 4. It's really important to note that this is not an ordered pair. This is not the ordered pair 14, 4. Okay, so be really careful of that. These are two separate points. So let's go ahead and take a look at another example. So, again, you want to be really careful. You want to read your directions. Sometimes they're just going to ask you to find the intercepts like they did in the last problem. This time, they're going to ask us to find the intercepts and to graph. So, again, we have negative x plus y is equal to 5. So, the first thing I want to do is I want to find my x-intercept. So I'm going to plug in 0 for y. So I have negative x plus 0 equals 5. So we have negative x equals 5. Again, we want it to be a positive x, so we're going to divide both sides by negative 1. So in this one, we're going to get x is equal to negative 5. I want to do the same thing with my y-intercept. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug in 0 for x. And I'm going to go ahead and solve for y. This one's pretty easy because the 0 just cancels out. We're just going to get y equals 5. There isn't anything else for us to do. Now, though, we are going to go ahead and we are going to graph this. So when we are graphing these, you are only graphing these 2 points. So remember, intercepts are where they cross the axis. So I'm going to go to the x-axis and I'm going to graph the point, negative 5. I'm also going to go to the y-axis and graph the point, positive 5. And then I'm just going to connect the dots. When you're graphing by finding intercepts, you should only have 2 points on your graph. The only 2 points I want to see on your graph are the one on your x-axis and the one on your y-axis. When we graph by tables, we had 5 points. When we're doing intercepts, we only have 2. Let's do one more example like this. So if I have 4x minus 2y equals 10. Again, we're going to start off. We're going to find the x-intercept here. So I'm going to plug in 0 for y. So I have 4x minus 2 times 0 equals 10. So that cancels out. I get 4x equals 10. I want to go ahead, I want to divide both sides by 4. I'm going to get x is equal to 2 2/4, which is 2.5. Don't think that you did something wrong just because you didn't get a whole number. Now we need to go ahead and we need to do the same thing. We need to find our y-intercept. So we're going to plug in 0 for x, and we're going to solve for y. So again, this cancels out. I have negative 2y equals 10. Again, don't lose that negative. Divide both sides by negative 2, you're going to get y is equal to negative 5. Now we can go ahead and graph that one. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to plot 2.5. Remember, 2.5 just means that it's in between 2 and 3. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to put a dot in between 2 and 3. A little bit hard to see there. And then we're going to go ahead and we are going to put a dot at -5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we can go ahead and we can connect the two. And so you should have a graph that looks something like that. And make this dot a little bit darker so that I can see where it's at. The last thing that they're going to have you do is they're going to have you identify intercepts. So they're going to give you a graph and they're going to ask you to find the intercepts. So they might give you a graph like this and they're going to ask you to identify what the intercepts are. So we're going to label it. We're going to say that the x-intercept, we can either say that the x-intercept is at x equals -1, because if you notice it crosses right here at -1. We could write it as an ordered pair. Remember, our x value is -1 and we plugged in 0. Or we can find our y-intercept. And so our y-intercept is going to be here, which would be at y equals 3. We need to label them. Or if we wrote that as an ordered pair, remember that's what happens when we plug in 0 for x and we get out our y. So either way is acceptable.